92% of nonprofits are they're currently using AI right now.
Right, which sounds huge.
Yeah, it does. But only 7% are actually seeing it change how they operate.
Just 7.
Yeah. So welcome to this deep dive, custom tailored specifically for you, because today we are diving into a 2026 white paper by Patrick Ianon of Smart AI for Biz, and it's titled The 7% Problem. Okay, let's unpack this because, those two numbers, the 92% and the 7%, they aren't on opposite ends of a spectrum.
No, they're not.
That 7% lives entirely inside the 92%.
It's a massive discrepancy, honestly, and it kind of forces us to confront this failed assumption, because for years the narrative in the nonprofit space was that AI adoption was strictly an access issue.
Like a resource thing.
Exactly. The thought process was that if the sector just subsidized the tools, and handed out logins, well, transformative impact would just naturally follow.
So assuming that if you just give people the technology, they will automatically figure out how to revolutionize their workflow.
Right. Which a 2026 benchmark study of 346 nonprofits conducted by Virtuous, it proves that is completely false. The access problem is essentially solved.
Almost everyone has some form of generative AI now.
Right, they do. But what hasn't followed is the impact. And the white paper pinpoints exactly why. It says 65% of that current AI usage is categorized as purely reactive.
Okay, let me see if I can deduce what reactive means in this context.
Yeah.
Because we aren't talking about systemic automation here, are we?
No, definitely not.
We're talking about, like, a random staff member using their personal ChatGPT account to quickly draft a donor email or summarize a PDF without really telling anyone they're doing it.
You're touching on the exact core issue there. It is unscripted prompting. There is zero shared methodology across the organization.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just an individual employee hacking their own day-to-day tasks. If that person leaves the organization tomorrow, nothing about their optimized process survives.
So it just walks out the door with them.
Exactly. It is ad hoc experimentation that's kind of masquerading as a strategy.
Which, that makes me wonder why that is such a fatal flaw. Because if you look at a tech startup, playing around with new tools, breaking things, that's their entire culture.
Right. Move fast and break things.
Yeah. It's how they innovate. So why can't a nonprofit just play around in the sandbox the exact same way a Silicon Valley startup does?
Well, it comes down to the stakes. The white paper highlights this critical asymmetry of risk, and that really defines the nonprofit sector.
How so?
Well, if a Fortune 500 company deploys an AI screening tool to optimize marketing, and the model turns out to be biased, they face a PR nightmare. Maybe their stock dips a bit.
Sure. They issue an apology and move on.
Right. But if a nonprofit uses a biased AI tool at a community intake desk, the consequences are immediate and they are devastatingly human.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
A real person loses a shelter placement, a family gets their nutritional benefits wrongly denied, or a sensitive legal case file is flagged incorrectly. The margin for error isn't measured in lost revenue. It is measured in human well-being.
So it's not a sandbox at all. It's live surgery.
Yes, perfectly put.
If a startup's experimental code fails, a user gets a 404 web page error. If a nonprofit's ungoverned AI fails, someone literally sleeps on the street.
Exactly.
It's like giving a teenager the keys to a sports car but forgetting to install the brakes or like paint the lanes on the road. That practical reality really reframes why governance isn't just some boring compliance appendix tacked onto the end of this white paper.
No, not at all.
It has to be chapter 1.
It is the only way to operate safely. The asymmetry of risk basically dictates that you simply cannot afford to deploy these systems without rigorous guardrails.
Okay, so if the stakes are live surgery, what is actively standing in the way of organizations putting those guardrails in place? Like, why isn't every nonprofit halting their reactive AI use right now to figure this out?
Well, the source outlines 5 specific barriers that consistently crash AI initiatives before they even get off the ground.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first one is data fragmentation, which we will unpack deeply in just a moment.
Sure.
The second is governance gaps. And the data here is a bit varied, but it is alarming either way.
How bad is it?
Well, depending on whether you look at the Virtuous benchmark or separate research from IBM and NationSwell, between 47% and 76% of nonprofits currently have absolutely no AI policy in place.
Wait, 47 to 76. That is a massive gap in the data. How can the estimate be anywhere from half to 3/4 of the entire sector?
It's crazy, right? It likely comes down to how different surveys define a policy.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, like a brief email from an executive saying, be careful with confidential data. That might count as a policy to one researcher, but totally not to another.
That makes sense.
But regardless of the exact percentage, the glaring reality remains. The vast majority of organizations have no shared institutional answer for what happens when the AI inevitably gets something wrong.
Right.
And that leads to the third barrier, which is staff capacity and AI literacy.
Right. Going back to our earlier point, just handing someone a login is not the same thing as building actual literacy.
Precisely. And then the fourth barrier is vendor dependency and lock-in.
Okay, what does that mean exactly?
This is where organizations adopt AI without even realizing it, because vendors are quietly bolting AI features onto existing legacy software.
Wait, how does that actually happen in practice? I always think of adopting AI as an active choice you have to make.
You'd think so, but it happens through routine software updates. Let's say a nonprofit uses a traditional donor management database. Suddenly, the vendor updates the software to include an AI tool that predicts which donors are most likely to give next month.
Oh, and it's just there.
Right. And if the nonprofit doesn't have an evaluation framework in place, they just start using it.
Because it's convenient.
Exactly. But they are now locked into an AI system where they cannot see the underlying model, they have no idea what training data was used, and they have no way to audit it for hidden biases. The vendor holds all the cards.
They're essentially trusting a black box with their entire operational strategy.
Exactly. And that ties directly into the fifth barrier, which is leadership alignment. When executive leadership treats AI adoption as just another software update for the IT department to handle, instead of a massive operational shift that requires board-level strategy, the initiative is just doomed.
Okay, I want to circle back to that first trap you mentioned, data fragmentation, because
Yeah.
I'm going to hold my ground on this one and play devil's advocate for a second.
Go for it.
Doesn't every office in the world have messy files? I mean, if a human caseworker can open a chaotic shared drive, read a messy spreadsheet, and still somehow figure out what a client needs, why is advanced AI suddenly so fragile when it encounters disorganized data?
That's a fair question, but it's because a human caseworker has something the AI completely lacks: real-world intuition and context. The white paper points out that the average mid-sized nonprofit is running on 7 or more disconnected systems.
7.
Yeah, you've got a CRM over here, a separate case management platform, a grants tracker, and usually a massive ancient spreadsheet that nobody admits to using but everyone secretly relies on.
We all know that spreadsheet.
Right. But a human knows that the ancient spreadsheet is out of date. The AI does not.
Ah, I see. It's not just a messy filing cabinet. Feeding fragmented data to an AI, it's like asking an overly confident intern to write a final executive report based on 3 contradictory Post-it notes they found in the trash.
Yes.
The intern, or in this case the AI, they won't tell you the data is missing or out of date. It will just confidently invent the connective tissue to make the report sound really good.
That is a perfect analogy. The AI doesn't give you a messy answer. It produces an incredibly confident, highly articulate, entirely wrong answer.
Wow.
It hallucinates facts because it is trying to reconcile bad, fragmented data without any human common sense.
And a confident wrong answer at an intake desk goes right back to that human cost we talked about earlier.
Exactly. And what's fascinating here is how universal this realization has become across the whole sector.
Yeah.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the white paper highlights that 3 entirely separate frameworks from 2026 Smart AI for Biz, the IBM and NationSwell playbook, and Project Evidence Equitable AI Adoption Framework, they all came to the exact same conclusion independently.
Which is?
Foundation must come before tools, every single time.
The author specifically says that arguing against this sequence isn't a strategy. It's literally betting against the evidence.
It's a guaranteed path to failure.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Because now that we've mapped this massive systemic problem, the white paper actually lays out the solution. The 3-layer AI framework.
Right at the roadmap.
Yeah, it describes it like a layered architectural foundation. Each layer has to bear the weight of the layer above it. If you try to skip one, you don't necessarily get a catastrophic explosion on day 1.
No, you don't.
Instead, you get slow, frustrating, invisible failures that just feel like random glitches until it's entirely too late.
And those invisible failures are far more dangerous than obvious ones because they scale quietly. So let's look at the structure. Layer 1 is governance and security.
The foundation.
This is the absolute bedrock. It includes your acceptable use policies, tiered data access, meaning not every AI tool has access to every single file bias review protocols, and an incident response plan designed before a single case file is ever processed.
Okay, and then layer 2 is integration and data. This is the unified technical architecture.
Right.
This is where you clean the data pipelines so that every AI tool you use is looking at the same accurate single source of truth, basically avoiding the overly confident intern scenario.
Exactly. And finally, you have layer 3. This is workflow orchestration.
Which is the only part most staff members actually ever see.
Yeah, usually.
Let's define what we mean by workflow orchestration or agent-assisted workflows, because that sounds like some heavy industry jargon. Does that mean just having like a better chatbot?
Not at all. An agent-assisted workflow means the AI is actively running in the background of a complex process.
Oh.
For example, instead of a staff member typing a prompt to ask for help, the AI automatically detects when a new grant application comes in, it cross-references it with the database, drafts a customized response, and then routes it to the correct department head for review.
That's huge.
It is orchestrating the flow of work, not just answering questions.
That makes a lot of sense. It's doing the heavy lifting across program delivery. But there is a crucial mechanism that the tech says must exist in Layer 3, or the entire framework just collapses. Layer 3 must always include a mandatory human approval checkpoint.
Yes, and that checkpoint serves a dual purpose. It's not just a one-way street where the human approves the work and moves on. The outputs from Layer 3 have to loop back into Layer 1 to constantly refine your governance policies.
So it's a cycle.
Exactly. You log what the AI got right, you log where it hallucinated, and you use that real-world evidence to update your rules. That feedback loop is the secret engine of the whole framework. Governance isn't meant to be a brake on innovation. Governance is what makes it safe to innovate quickly.
Okay, so if you are listening to this and wondering if your organization's foundation is currently cracking under the surface, how do you diagnose it?
Well, the white paper provides a brilliant diagnostic tool here, breaking down how failures aren't just random. They are entirely predictable depending on what stage of the life cycle your project is in.
Okay.
Risk literally mutates at every stage.
So if I'm looking at the very first stage, the design stage, I'm guessing the risk isn't a technical breakdown. It's more of a human oversight, like failing to define what the word fairness actually means for a specific community before you write a single line of code.
Exactly that. If you skip governance and design, bias just gets hard-coded into the system's DNA.
Wow.
Next is the pilot stage. The predictable failure here is a measurement error. Organizations accidentally measure success by how enthusiastic the staff is about the shiny new tool, instead of measuring whether outcomes actually improved for the people being served.
Right, because hearing, oh, we love how much time this saves us, doesn't actually mean the community is getting better service.
It goes deeper than that, even. You can save a massive amount of time doing the wrong thing faster.
Oof.
Then you hit the deploy stage. This is where organizations take a pilot that worked perfectly on 10 test cases, and they scale it up to 10,000 cases. But they fail to test for data drift or edge cases.
Let me stop you there and get some definitions for everyone. When you say edge cases, you mean a rare scenario the AI hasn't been trained on, like a highly unique family structure applying for aid.
Yes.
And data drift, does that mean the real-world demographics or economic situations change over time, but the AI is still making decisions based on last year's reality?
Spot on. The world is dynamic, but AI models freeze their understanding based on their training data. If you don't monitor for data drift, the AI becomes aggressively outdated but remains perfectly confident.
Right, back to the intern.
Exactly. And that leads to the final stage, which is monitor. The classic failure here is that the governance policy you spent months writing just becomes a dusty PDF on a shared drive. Nobody updates it until something breaks publicly.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, a bad AI outcome isn't just a glitch. It's a diagnostic signal telling you exactly which stage of governance you skipped.
Exactly. And this raises an important question for any leadership team standing at the edge of deployment. Before you hit the Go Live button, the author introduces the ultimate leadership test. It's the 3-question trust check.
Okay.
I highly recommend applying these to whatever project you are currently working on. Question 1. Would the people we serve actually understand how AI is being used in the decisions that affect their lives?
That's radical transparency. I like that.
Question 2. If the AI produces a wrong answer, who specifically is accountable, and do they have the actual authority and tools to catch the error and override it?
Essential.
And question 3, does the use of this AI strengthen, or does it actively weaken the human relationships that are the absolute core of our mission?
That third question is profound. Does the efficiency come at the cost of human connection?
Right.
Okay, let's operationalize all of this. If you're sitting in a board meeting tomorrow, how do you actually execute this framework?
The white paper is highly actionable here. It lays out a specific 24-month roadmap to close the gap and move an organization into that elite 7%.
Okay, where do we start?
It's structured in phases, starting with months 1 to 3, which is name the gap.
What actually happens in those first 90 days?
You commission a readiness audit. And this is not just an IT inventory of software, but an audit of where operational friction already exists. You draft your baseline governance policies first before adding any new tools.
Get the rules straight first.
Exactly. You select one single lighthouse use case to focus on, and you form a cross-functional AI steering group. Crucially, though, the white paper insists this group must report to strategy or operations. It should never report to IT.
Wait, why is that distinction so important? Wouldn't IT be the experts on the technology?
IT understands the technical deployment, sure, but this isn't just a software update. It is a fundamental shift in how the organization delivers its mission.
Oh, I see.
If it reports to IT, it gets treated as a technical project measured by uptime and login rates. If it reports to operations, it gets treated as a strategic capability measured by mission outcomes.
That makes a lot of sense, actually.
Right.
So then we move to months 4 through 9, which is build the infrastructure. I imagine this is where you finally clean up that messy data repository we talked about.
Yes. You eliminate the contradictory post-it notes, so to speak. You run 1 or 2 low-risk pilots tied directly to that lighthouse use case, enforcing mandatory human review. You implement a strict vendor evaluation checklist to prevent that API black box lock-in we discussed earlier.
Right.
And you launch staff AI literacy programs. But they must be built around real, everyday workflows, not just generic lessons on how to write a prompt.
Okay, so it takes almost a year just to get the pipes clean and the rules written. Then we hit months 10 to 18, which is put it to work.
Right. Now you begin integrating the proven tools into wider departments: fundraising, communications, program delivery. But the critical action here is building KPI dashboards that are explicitly tied to mission outcomes.
KPI dashboards, so key performance indicators, tracking the metrics that actually matter.
Right. It doesn't matter if an AI tool was used 500 times in a week. What matters is, did the time to place a family in housing decrease? Did the donor retention rate go up? Alongside those dashboards, organizations in this phase must conduct formal equity reviews of their deployed models.
Let me clarify that really quick. An equity review isn't just a vibe check from the staff saying, oh, this feels fair, right? It's a rigorous audit to ensure the AI isn't accidentally favoring certain demographics over others in something critical, like a housing wait list.
Exactly. It is a statistical and operational audit of the outcomes, and you report those findings directly to the board so that governance becomes a living, breathing process.
And finally, we arrive at months 19 to 24. Make it strategic.
This is the maturity phase. AI gets explicitly embedded into annual strategic planning and budgeting cycles. You formalize the impact measurement. And importantly, organizations at this stage begin sharing their governance frameworks and their mistakes with peer nonprofits. Yeah, they recognize that the entire sector needs to elevate its standards together.
I love how the text defines the ultimate sign of success at the end of this 24-month journey. It's a complete culture shift. You know you've won when your staff stops asking, hey, can I use AI for this task? And they start asking, what governance does this specific case require before I begin?
Yes.
The focus shifts entirely from playing with a tool to mastering a method.
When that linguistic shift happens in the hallway conversations, governance has truly taken root.
So what does this all mean? We've covered massive ground today, from the illusion of the 92% adoption rate to the dangers of the overly confident intern data, all the way through a rigorous 24-month roadmap.
We really did.
If there is one overarching takeaway from Patrick Enon's research, it is this. Governance is not the enemy of innovation. Governance is the innovation. It is the absolute only way to separate the 7% of organizations seeing real mission-aligned impact from the 92% who are just playing around with flashy, dangerous tools.
Exactly. And while this specific white paper focuses heavily on the nonprofit sector's unique risk profile, the reality is that this 3-layer framework applies everywhere.
Really anywhere.
Yeah. Whether you are leading a nonprofit, managing a corporate team, or organizing a local community group, building that governance layer first is the only mechanism that makes technology trustworthy at scale. You just cannot build a heavy structure on a cracked foundation.
I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, one that builds on the white paper's stark warning about AI potentially weakening human relationships and accountability. We talked earlier about the high stakes at the community intake desk. Imagine a scenario in the near future where an ungoverned nonprofit AI wrongly denies a vital service to someone in need.
A terrible scenario.
But what happens when that beneficiary is equipped with their own personal AI agent? An agent specifically designed to aggressively appeal, auto-generate complex legal forms, and relentlessly argue the rejection on their behalf.
You end up with the battle of the bots.
Precisely. If organizations don't build robust governance and mandatory human checkpoints right now, they aren't just risking messy data. They are setting the stage for a literal battle of the bots at the intake desk. It becomes algorithms shouting at algorithms, where human empathy, the very reason these organizations were founded in the first place, is entirely removed from the equation. You do not want to be the organization that let the human element slip away just because you decided to skip layer one. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep questioning the foundation.